The theory of leadership is a beautiful thing, as I said, but what I believe is broken is the perception. That is broken. The perception of what a leader is, how they talk, how they walk, how they dress, the office that they have, the decisions they make, all of those things are great. But those things do not make somebody an effective leader. Really, when you look at perfectionism and being a perfectionist and we dive down into it, it's this feeling that I'm never enough and I don't want to look stupid and I wanted everything to be perfect. But if you look at the name and the introduction of what I said it's off script, it's unfiltered. And if I try to shoot for perfection, it really is the counter of that. Do you ever feel like you are leading from a place that just isn't you? Perhaps trying to fit a mold or lead to someone else's expectations. Well, if you feel that way and you're ready to lead from a place of authenticity, you're in the right place. I'm your host, Josh Fisher, and this is Off Script, a leadership podcast for people who don't like leadership podcasts. So here we are. Let's go. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of all ages. Well, technically, I think you should be 18 or older. Welcome to the main event. Welcome to the Off Script Leadership Podcast. I am excited to be here. I'm excited that you're here, and I'm glad you made it. And you are now listening to the first episode of the Off Script Podcast. So therefore, and ergo, and by proxy, you are officially part of the Off Scripter Club. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for giving me your time. I am very, very grateful for that. So listen, this is the kickoff episode. This is that messy first pancake. The one that you look at that's not beautiful, but boy, does it still taste good, especially loaded down with some peanut butter if you're not allergic, and a lot of syrup. Of course, don't forget the butter. Gotta have butter. So yeah, let's get into it. So you're probably wondering what the heck this off-script leadership is all about. Why the heck am I doing it? Well, I tell you, this has been a long time dream of mine to have a podcast, to put my voice out there, to share a little bit or a lot about who I am and about what I believe leadership is really all about. And by the end of the episode, you will have an understanding of what this off-script leadership podcast thing is all about. So I hope you hang in there. I hope that I have the ability to keep your attention, to keep you engaged, to keep you inspired, and to keep you curious, to keep coming back again and again, and to share these episodes with somebody who you may feel is ready for it, or in the season for it, or in the moment for it. And I feel that we all are in that season and in that moment. Right? You're going to learn a lot about me, who I am as a person, the struggles that I've encountered in my life, whether personal or professional. And trust me, there are so many that I have lost count. And it requires me to journal, to think, to be aware, to really dig deep into my life, to understand all those stories and experiences, and how they manifested when I was younger and how they still manifest as a grown adult. You know, a little bit about me. You know, I'm a little neurotic. Oh, okay, I'm probably a lot neurotic, I guess, right? So I can be a little intense, a little edgy. Yeah, I've been known to be a little bit abrasive or a little bit of gruff because my tone is a little bit different. And I'm assuming it was the 22 years in the United States Marine Corps that has shaped my tone, speaking from the diaphragm. And sometimes how I say things may come out a little twisted, a little misunderstood, and more often than not, that's not my intent. But it's been a learning process throughout my adult life, especially after retiring from the Marine Corps. So, yeah, I spend a lot of time in my head. I think a lot, and I have an RBF, right? People look at me and be like, Josh, why are you upset? Well, I'm not upset. I'm probably just thinking about everything. What did I just say to that person? Did it make sense? Oh my goodness, I shouldn't have said that. Or on the flip side and the positive side, man, I really crushed that. And I spin those thoughts over and over again. But I'm also a deep person. I like to reflect. I like to think from a philosophical perspective and try to understand the things that people do and the things that I do. And it's been a constant journey filled with adversity and obstacles and learning that who I am as a person is good enough. And I don't have to pretend to be a certain way or walk or talk or dress a certain way. And in essence, that's what the off-script leadership is about. It's about being you. It's about being genuine, authentic, vulnerable. All those things that we may have been taught or learned aren't always good in a professional or personal setting. And as our society develops and as our society grows and we become more intelligent, we start to understand this thing called emotional intelligence. And the more emotional intelligence that we have, the more human we can lead. And that's the essence, the genesis of this podcast is to share that and to bring you all along on my journey, because I genuinely care about connecting with people and not on surface level. I'm talking about truly connecting with people in a way that feels human. So I'm stoked for what's ahead. I'm excited to share my voice, my stories, my experiences, my failures, my successes. And I will talk to you a little bit about the framework of what this podcast will entail going into the future and some of the dreams that I have with it. And hopefully each and every one of you that are here today stay on the journey with me and we can grow together. So before I can continue, I really just want to give a shout out to all the people behind the scenes who've most importantly believed in me when I didn't believe in myself, who nudged me or who pushed me or who kicked me in the back to get me to keep going. You know, one of my great friends, not going to mention his name right now. I hope to have him on the podcast at a future episode. But he told me during this process and a lot of or many other times when I was facing things and doing things and struggling is he told me that perfection prevents progress. And a lot of people think that this word perfection is, you know, like, hey, I'm a perfectionist. We mean that we're detail oriented. We don't miss things. But really, when you look at perfectionism and being a perfectionist and we dive down into it, it's this feeling that I'm never enough. And I don't want to look stupid. And it's laced with a lot of these insecurities. And that I want to be perfect has hindered me from getting this podcast out to the public because I wanted everything to be perfect. But if you look at the name and the introduction of what I said it's off script, right? It's not the traditional script that we're given, but more importantly, it's unapologetic, it's unfiltered, and it's unpolished. And if I try to shoot for perfection, it really is the counter of that. So here I am. I'm committed. I'm with you. And I hope that you're with me. Now, wow, where do I go? So if you're watching this video, so if you're listening, great. If you're watching this on YouTube, you know, you probably see me. Here I am, just me in a white t-shirt. You know, hair is just doing whatever it does. And for all you know, I'm not even wearing pants. So that's the cool thing about being on TV or on the video or on Zoom. All you have to do is put on your top and you're like, he's dressed up. He's ready to go. But you don't know what's below. But for the record, I am wearing pants of some kind. So here we are. That's it. You know, let's do it. Let's have fun. And let's get at this because, again, where do we begin? Here we are. Like, let's just go with it. And if you're listening to this podcast and it's your first one, you're probably doing this because you're here to support me, and just show me that I have some people in my corner, and I'm grateful for it. But I have one job now, and that is really to give you enough reason to stay. And that's my goal every day, is give you something that you can walk away with where you want more. So why am I doing this? And with them, what's in it for you? So I feel, and I believe, I learned those phrases while teaching leadership, marriage counseling, personal counseling. I feel a certain way. I feel a certain way about leadership. I feel the way that society has boxed leadership up, right? The way it's taught, the way it's sold, the way it's modeled. I feel, especially in this day and age, I feel that it's off. It's not genuine. It's too perfect. It's curated, and it's scripted. And what I mean by that is teaching workshops and saying, hey, all you have to do is say this or do that. But the reality is, when you are in the enemy lines, behind the enemy lines, in the territory of leading and connecting, a lot of those times those scripts don't work, and you have to be able to let that go and be in the moment and be there for your person, right? So that's sort of the essence of this. It's really talking about the imperfections, the flaws, the challenges, the things that we face as leaders that a lot of people don't talk about, the real burden of leadership. And yeah, you heard me right. I said the burden of leadership. And leadership itself, we know for the most part that it is a gift. It is a privilege. It is an honor when somebody feels comfortable enough with you to say, you're my leader. That is one of the best professional gifts that you can ever receive. And it's a gift that is given over time, and it is a gift that can be taken away in a second's notice. So I believe leadership is broken. I'll say it again because it's a little provocative. I believe leadership is broken. All right. Maybe it's not leadership. It isn't leadership. The theory of leadership is a beautiful thing, as I said. But what I believe is broken is the perception. That is broken. The perception of what a leader is, how they talk, how they walk, how they dress, the office that they have, the decisions they make, all of those things are great. But those things do not make somebody an effective leader. That is the prescribed archetype, and that is the status quo that we talk about, that we think about, and how we teach it. And again, I believe that's what's broken. And none of this is your fault. None of this is my fault. It's sort of this society or societal expectation, this conformity thing. If I want to be here, I have to be like this. If I want to go there, I got to be like that. And in the reality of the entire kind of spectrum of leadership, you just have to be you. You have to be able to connect with people. Right? So we've been sold this fantasy in the modern day of technology, right? All these fancy TED Talks, all you got to do is this, all you got to do is that. These tech icons who are making things more efficient, right? LinkedIn influencers are social media influencers where they have curated images, where they have choreographed vulnerability. And we built the idea that leadership is clean, that leadership is easy, it's controlled, it's charismatic, and it's commanding. And we've learned that leadership, or we believe that leadership has to be perfect. We believe that a real leader is always calm, is always clear, and is always certain. But the reality is that is just not human nature. But that's the script we're given. And it's not wrong, but it's toxic to a certain extent. It prevents a lot of people from flourishing, from being confident with making decisions or making mistakes, but leading from a genuine human level. Now, this podcast isn't here to about sell you a framework per se. It's not about 5 steps to be more executive or to hold yourself accountable, right? It's not that kind of podcast, because I think we've had enough of that, right? We've had enough of thinking leadership is strictly all about performance, the pressure and pretending, right? So most of you, and to include myself, walk into certain positions, leadership roles, with this phenomenon called imposter syndrome. Duct tape to our chest, pressed tightly underneath our blazers, our blouses, and our scripts tucked neatly into whatever work bag that that we're carrying, right? And it's tucked in there with this belief that we have to talk, dress, lead a certain way to be taken seriously, or you have to have the ability to influence and inspire somebody, which in essence, that's what leadership is, right? It's, do I have the ability to connect? Do I have the ability to be vulnerable? Do I have the ability to show people that I'm human? And when you do those things, trust is built, influence is built, and the ability to motivate and inspire somebody compounds exponentially because you are now leading from a place of authenticity. It's about leading from a place that is human. It's about leading from a place that oftentimes can be very messy, but leading real is actually how you get things done, specifically things done or results delivered that are sustainable. Because that's who we are. We're humans. We are perfectly imperfect. If you have ever sat in a meeting and you look around and you're like, is everybody really this smart? Why do I feel out of place? How come I don't understand everything that's going on here? Do all these people have their shit together and I don't? Are they faking it? Like, what's the deal? I've had those thoughts many of times. And I've walked out of those feeling more insecure than I walked into them because I always felt behind, which coincidentally is a childhood trauma of mine as well. And I'll get into that next episode, a little bit more about me, about my story, about my foundation, the things that have molded me into the person that I am today and still constantly striving to be. But if you ever had those thoughts sitting in the meeting, you're not alone. And if you've never had that thought, maybe you should think about it for a second. Because I'm willing to bet those people are just a little bit stronger at sticking to the script than you are. So I have to say that this show is a rebellion of sorts. And it's not a rebellion or uprising against any organization, any company, or against the idea or the philosophy of the leader or the ideology of leadership. Because again, that's a beautiful thing. It's a rebellion against being polished and being perfect, because being polished and perfect every day of your life is extremely difficult. And it's only a matter of time before that mask, that shell, that cape breaks, falls off, and you will be exposed. So how do we nip that in the bud? How do we start leading from those vulnerable places? Now, I'm not here on this podcast coming to you all from the perspective that I have conquered this thing called leadership or mastered this thing called leadership. I struggle each and every day with imposter syndrome, holding myself accountable, holding other people accountable, giving feedback. These things are challenging. So I'm not coming here from a lens of I got this figured out. I'm coming here from a lens that I've studied this, I understand it, I've practiced it, I've taught it. But the only difference between me and somebody who is not in this industry is that I carry that within me on a daily basis. So when I don't do one of those things that I teach, I live with more guilt, more shame, more embarrassment of not doing the things that I teach. Because I'm human, I'm gonna slip, I'm gonna fall. But I'm aware of those moments, and I'm able to catch myself and get myself back on track, sometimes quicker than others, of course. But I struggle with leadership every day. So I really wanted to start this podcast to help myself communicate some of my failures, to have more awareness, to be more in tune with the things that I'm doing. And hopefully as a byproduct, you're listening, you're taking something from it, you're sharing it with somebody who may need it, and they in turn are learning the same things, but that are relevant to them. Now, I have to say that I've worn this imposter cloak for most of my life. I've worn it so long, I got tired of the 80s, 90s, early 2000s look, and I got that thing tailored. Slim fit, look sharp. I'm telling you, man, Superman, Batman, those capes, whatever. Does Batman have a cape? I think he does. Those capes, they look nothing like mine. That's how long I've worn this thing. 45 years. I've led teams all sizes, 4 to well over 100. I've experienced burnout over the past few years as a facilitator and delivering workshops. There's days where I've walked out feeling that I crushed that one, on point, engaged. And there's days that I walked out of those workshops questioning why I even do this job. And am I even the right person for this job? Who the hell am I to be up there? Those days happen. And I go back to the hotel and I think and I ponder and I live in my head and I feel physically, mentally, emotionally hungover. And I'm assuming that's the chemicals inside of the nervous system, not the sympathetic nervous system, but the parasympathetic nervous system, the recovery system where I feel crashed and I'm burnt out. So I've also coached leaders who are killing it on paper, but they were crumbling in real life. They were crumbling behind the door, but the image that they were projecting, no one would ever know that they were struggling. And I've seen patterns. I've seen passionate, soulful people, leaders in great positions who are driven with purpose, but every day coming into that office, they dreaded. They didn't want to do it. They were twisting themselves into these roles, into these figures, into these images that look good on resume and get recognized for performance for that next promotion, but never felt like they were living their truth. And that's why off-script leadership was born. I needed and I wanted the space to have a voice, to share these things, to ask you all real questions, to bring up real topics, the kind that don't make it into performance reviews or onto keynote stages, because leadership can be a very lonely place. It can be hard. And no one told me that. They sold me the fantasy. No one said the higher you go, the harder it is to ask for help. No one ever told me that you can be admired by others, yet still so disconnected from yourself. So again, this leadership podcast or this off-script podcast isn't about tips or hacks. It's about the truth. Truths like, I don't know what I'm doing, but I care. It's about truths like, damn, I made a mistake, but I still can lead through this. It's about learning the truth about, I don't have to sacrifice myself to show up for others. And that's okay. And that's why off-script exists. It's not to impress, but to get honest. So that's why we're here. We've created a leadership culture that is obsessed with optics, right? Images. Always looking composed, appearing as the visionary. And even when we're drowning in our own uncertainty, we have to present ourselves in a certain way. We train leaders to speak with clarity and certainty, even if they don't have that themselves. We teach them, and this is the worst advice ever, to fake it until you make it. To lead with charisma, even though somebody may be an introvert and they're not that outgoing. And we teach people to lead with charisma, even if they've lost their own connection. We say, be authentic, be you, but only if that authenticity is neat. We tell people, hey, we have to be transparent, but wait, don't be too transparent. Don't tell them too much. We oftentimes praise the performance, and then we wonder why people get burnt out, why they get checked out. And the worst part, we've normalized this behavior. This pressure to be polished has become the baseline, and I feel it is crushing a lot of people. It definitely was crushing me. So what does real leadership look like? Where is this podcast going? What topics are we going to talk about? Real leadership is and looks like not always having the answers. It's having the courage to speak up, to ask questions, to ask better questions, to be curious. Leadership is not about commanding the room. It's about creating a space where people feel seen and safe to be real, to make mistakes, to ask questions, to look stupid. Real leadership looks like owning your own mess, not just all the successes, right? Saying things like, I was wrong, without rushing to defend yourself, which is very challenging to do. Real leadership is about asking hard, uncomfortable questions and being able to sit in the moment of silence that follows after. Listening to understand and not listening to fix it. We're all guilty of that. I'm guilty of that. And saying 3 very challenging words as a leader I don't know. But then trusting that that's enough for now. Now that doesn't say don't do your due diligence and figure it out. But it's okay to say, I don't know, and trusting that it's going to be okay for that moment. And it's truly about showing up as the whole person, not as the role, not as the title, not as the resume, but as you in the moment, real. It looks like presence and not performance. And here's the thing about genuine, authentic leadership. It's often invisible. It's quiet, and it builds trust when no one's watching. Real leadership is the pause before the reaction. It's the breath before the hard decision. And real human leadership is hard. It costs your ego, your certainty, and the need to be liked. But what you gain is massive. You gain integrity, you gain clarity and alignment with who you actually are. And that's what I want more of. That's what I want from myself. That's what I want from each and everybody out there. And that's what Offscript is fighting for. It's not perfect, it's not polished, but I hope it's powerful because it's human and it's real and it's raw. And when we leave from those places, people don't just follow us, they trust us, they grow with us, and they belong in our community. So here's what you all can expect from the Offscript Leadership Podcast. No fluff, just raw, real reflections, straight from my soul and hopefully straight into your soul. I'm gonna share stories, thoughts. I'm gonna send questions out to you all, and hopefully get some input, some feedback, and talk about those on the episode. Little guest highlights, if you will. Send me your stories of being off script, and I'll share those stories on this podcast, because those are the moments that really matter, when we all have a voice and we all have the ability and capacity to share our vulnerability and our stories. So every episode, I promise you, every episode is going to end with a journaling prompt. Do it, don't do it, that's completely up to you, but every episode will end with a journaling prompt. Because journaling, I believe, allows us to make these things tangible. And when they're tangible, we have this awareness. And when we have awareness, that's where true self-leadership begins. And over time, I will have interviews, different segments. But no matter what I bring to you all, I promise that every episode will be me, will be genuine, and will be honest. I can guarantee you that. And also what I can guarantee you, it will always be human. Off-script leadership and the idea behind it is not about arriving. It's about returning to presence. And if that sounds like something you're interested in and that you want to be a part of, then please stick around. I would love to have you part of the community. This isn't just a podcast. It's about truly understanding, learning, making mistakes. It's about practice. So before we wrap up, I'm going to slow things down for just a minute. So we're going to talk about the prompt. But before we get to the prompt, I do want to say thank you again for spending this time with me. You have literally given me something that is your greatest commodity. It's your time and your attention. And I hope maybe by the end of this episode, a little bit of your trust. And I'm grateful for that. Thank you so much. And I don't take that lightly. So here it is. This isn't homework. It's not a check in the box. It's just an invitation to pause and to look within. It's your journaling prompt. So here it is. Who are you? Let that question breathe like fine wine. Who are you? Smell it, taste it. It's not your title. It's not your LinkedIn summary. It's not your facade, not the version of you that knows how to smile through your own burnout, your own disappointment, your own insecurities, your own uncertainty. I want to know who you are. And I want you to know who you are. The one that shows up when no one's watching, when the room is quiet, when there's no script to follow and no role to play. Are you the person that you want to be? Are you the leader that you want to be? So here's the thing. Leadership isn't about control. It's about creating safety. It's not about looking polished. It's about looking present and being present. And presence starts when you're willing to sit with what's real, the messy, the honest, the unfiltered, that you know exist beneath all of the performance. So sit with that. Don't fix it. Don't judge it. Just notice it. And that's where the transformation begins. So if something in this episode stirred something up in you, a shift, a sigh, or even a yes, finally, please, 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 like it, share it, subscribe, give it to somebody that you feel needs this in the moment. You can find this podcast on all major podcast platforms. And if you need a journal or want to support, you can journal on whatever you want. I don't care what it is. It could be a napkin. I think that's where some of the best inventions come from, they say, right? On a napkin in a bar. So I don't care where you journal. But if you want to support the Off Script Leadership Podcast, you can click the Amazon link below. It's going to send you to the Off Script Journal. It's nothing fancy, but it's a blank space for you to think, for you to write, record, and share your experiences with yourself and potentially me over time. And it's just a good place. There's no prompts in that one, just a place for you to explore and for you to write. And coming soon, I will have more details to follow, but I will be looking for community engagement, community participation. So in the next episode or two, I'll share the email. I'll share the guidance. But essentially, I want to hear your off-script stories. I want to hear your questions. I want to hear your thoughts. And you can send them to the email that will be in the show notes below. And then what I'll do once a month, the plan right now is to randomly select 3 stories and share those stories on this podcast with your permission, of course. But I'm assuming since you emailed it to me, I have your permission. So if that's the case or you don't want it shared, then please just tell me, hey, here's my story, but please don't share it. Not a big deal. But I will select 3 people and we will share those stories on here from your perspectives, to hear your voice, to hear your successes and failures. And those 3 people will get something special from me. It might be a Post-it saying thank you. It might be a out of ink used pen that's sitting on my desk. But whatever the case, you'll get something from me if you allow me and trust me to share your story. So just remember that the world doesn't need a polished version of you. It just needs the present one. And that's where we begin. So until next time, where I will share my story with you so you have a better understanding of the voice, the personality behind the mic. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being here. This is the Off Script Leadership Podcast. See you soon.